Australian woman Natalie Bonnet was making her way through a COVID-19 blockade in Wallan on September the 12th of 2020 when she was involved in a violent altercation with the police. Subsequent reports revealed that the woman, a 29-year-old lash technician, was initially stopped at the checkpoint because she had a cell phone attached to a car charger mounted on her windshield, which law enforcement told her was illegal. A tense interaction ensued as Bonnet refused to give the policeman her name or driver's license, instead requesting to speak with a supervisor. The officer repeatedly asked the woman, who reportedly suffered from severe anxiety, to step out of the vehicle, but she refused, indicating she was uncomfortable and felt unsafe. As was captured in a video recording of the incident, the officer subsequently reached inside the vehicle and attempted to drag the masked woman outside, while her boyfriend, who was in the passenger seat, tried to pull her back in. Bonnet was eventually removed from the car by force. She later claimed in an interview with the Herald Sun that the officers were rough in their handling of her, as they allegedly kneed her in the back, constricted her airways, and leaving her with several bruises in the aftermath. Bonnet roundly condemned the police's actions, which she labeled disproportionate to her behavior. Victoria Police placed the brunt of the blame for the incident on the motorist herself, whom they deemed childish and combative for repeatedly flouting law enforcement's instructions. She was charged with driving with obscured vision, failing to produce a license, failing to state her name and address, resisting arrest, assault of a police officer, and offensive language. Bonnet was involved in a second altercation with the police only 2 months later, when she lashed out at officers trying to detain her because she was in the midst of a panic attack. In court, it was detailed that the police were simply attempting to get her the medical help she required, but she resisted them and at one point threw a tire iron into the middle of the freeway, endangering other drivers. In February of 2023, Bonnet pleaded guilty to conduct endangering other persons and 2 counts of assaulting an emergency worker on duty. Number 6. Sprint store dispute. A contentious, racially charged exchange between patrons at a Sprint store in Manassas, Virginia, went viral in the summer of 2017. In a video of the incident that was widely shared on social media, a woman was shown on the phone telling a representative that she'd been to 2 of the 5 Sprint stores in Manassas, but no one had been able to help her. A polite-sounding man subsequently told the woman they have one in Fairfax, to which she immediately responded with anger and hostility. She berated the friendly bystander, saying, "I wasn't talking to you and don't listen to my conversation." The man, who identified himself simply as Juan, refrained from engaging with her as she proceeded to shout profanity-laden insults at him. The interaction then seemingly came to an end as a moment of silence between the 2 parties ensued. However, a few seconds later, the woman then lashed out at Juan again, telling him her husband, who was also inside the store, would beat him up if he continued bothering her. She also indicated that she'd be willing to fight him as well, calling him a racial slur in the process. Rather than inflame the tension any further, Juan subsequently left the store, but as he did, the woman hurled one final taunt, telling him to go back to Mexico as the video came to an end. She said, "So disrespectful, speaking another language in my country." The belligerent woman's behavior was met with nearly ubiquitous disapproval and condemnation, including by the CEO of Sprint himself, who called the incident totally unacceptable. Number 5. Charles J. Hagedorn. Ohio police were called to the Victoria Theatre in downtown Dayton at about 5:30 p.m. on July the 9th of 2018 for a report of a man causing a public disturbance. Responding officers encountered 44-year-old Charles J. Hagedorn, whom theatre employees accused of trashing their break room in an angry outburst. The man had reportedly gone to follow up on a job application he'd submitted. He immediately displayed signs of intoxication and appeared agitated when he was asked to fill out another application. While doing so, however, Hagedorn's handwriting was noticeably erratic, and the staff thus asked him to come back after he'd sobered up. The man then flew into a rage, shouting profanities and threatening to stab 3 employees. Hagedorn began throwing objects around the break room, prompting some of the workers to attempt to physically restrain him. He spat on them and scratched one of their arms with his fingernails. By the time law enforcement arrived, the employees had successfully subdued the man, and he was subsequently arrested. He was booked at the Montgomery County Jail on charges of assault and aggravated menacing. The police indicated that Hagedorn didn't smell of alcohol, but they agreed with the theater employee's assessment that he was under the influence of something. Number 4. Matthew James Visconti. Following a long night of drinking, Florida man Matthew James Visconti punched a Jimmy John's employee on May the 2nd of 2015. The 22-year-old Boca Raton resident was at the sandwich shop at 330 Clematis Street when the incident occurred. Police were called to the scene where they encountered Visconti, who appeared agitated, aggressive, and was noticeably intoxicated. He complained that he hadn't received the sandwich he'd paid for in a timely manner, which had prompted him to strike the store manager in the face. The latter presented with a visible laceration on the bridge of his nose. While law enforcement was gathering information about what had transpired, Visconti reportedly exited the restaurant and started walking east on Clematis Street. Officers informed him he needed to remain at the scene, but he refused, at which point a physical struggle between him and the police ensued. The young man was accused of elbowing and kicking 2 officers before being cuffed. A police report detailed that at one point, Visconti wedged himself in between a pair of palm trees and then needed to have his legs restrained after he continued to kick at law enforcement. He was initially taken to a local hospital for the facial abrasions he sustained during his fight with the police, before being booked at the Palm Beach County Jail on a $6,000 bond. Visconti consequently faced criminal charges of battery, battery on an officer, disorderly intoxication, and resisting arrest. Number 3. Cody Lee Fister. 26-year-old Cody Lee Fister was arrested after a video of him licking items at a Walmart in Warrenton, Missouri, surfaced on social media. Local police were made aware of the man's shameless attempt to mock concerns about the coronavirus after multiple Warrenton residents made calls to report the video, which Fister himself had uploaded. In the recording, the young man could be heard asking, "Who's scared of coronavirus?" as he continually dragged his tongue across various store items. The prank video ultimately landed him in police custody on a charge of making threats. In official court documents, Fister was accused of knowingly causing a false belief or fear that a condition involving danger to life existed. His attorney told a local media outlet that the incident occurred the day before the World Health Organization officially classified COVID-19 as a pandemic, and that public conduct that was immature looks completely different through the lens of today. Number 2. Liam Watts. A pair of English police departments withstood targeted cyber attacks that caused their websites to go down in August of 2018 and March of 2019. According to court records, both the Greater Manchester Police Force and the Cheshire Constabulary had their respective sites hacked by a 20-year-old cybercriminal named Liam Watts. As a result of the latter's attacks, the websites were rendered inaccessible, meaning civilians were unable to view vital information, seek updates on the progress of ongoing investigations, report minor crimes, or contact local officers for a 24-hour period. Watts reportedly used specialist software to overload the websites, then posted messages on social media in which he boasted about his achievement and taunted the police for their inability to stop him. In one such post, Watts indicated his cyber attacks were meant as retaliation for his previous conviction in connection to a bomb hoax in Warrenton. Law enforcement officials called the young man immature for the website hack and social media taunts. He was eventually arrested and later pleaded guilty to 2 counts of unauthorized acts with intent to impair the operation of or prevent access to a computer. During a hearing at Chester Crown Court in August of 2019, Watts was sentenced to 16 months detention for what a judge described as a fundamental attack on the heart of society. If you don't feel satiated just yet, then you can stay tuned after number 1 to watch our previous video on when child stars go wrong. Number 1. Matthew Nicholson. A 28-year-old man from Ceres, California, gunned his mother down following an argument over a broken video game headset on January the 11th of 2018. An investigation into the matter revealed that on the night in question, Matthew Nicholson had started yelling while playing video games in his room at the home he shared with his parents on the 1300 block of River Valley Circle. After hearing the commotion he was making, his mother, 68-year-old Lydia Nicholson, checked in on him, which only served to further enrage him. They got into an argument during the course of which Matthew's headset broke. under circumstances that weren't disclosed in subsequent reports. The man blamed his mother for the device's malfunction, at which point he threatened to kill both her and his father. He then retrieved a handgun, which he used to shoot Lydia in the head, a wound that ultimately proved fatal for her. Matthew's father subsequently wrestled the weapon away from him, and Matthew fled the scene by car, driving to a relative's house in Riverbank. The police eventually tracked him down and took him into custody for his mother's killing. In April of 2021, it was reported that Matthew had reached a deal with prosecutors, the terms of which stipulated that he would plead guilty to second-degree murder and assault with a firearm. He was consequently given a prison term of 27 years to life. Number 7. Jake Lloyd. After starring opposite Arnold Schwarzenegger in Jingle All the Way, child actor Jake Lloyd rose to worldwide fame after he was chosen by director George Lucas to play young Anakin Skywalker in Star Wars Episode I: The Phantom Menace. The 1999 movie was one of the most highly anticipated productions of its time, but many felt it hadn't lived up to expectations for various reasons, including character and storyline choices. Even though 8-year-old Lloyd won a Young Artist Award for his performance, a portion of the harsh criticism was aimed at his acting. He consequently went through a period of severe emotional turmoil. He was reportedly bullied at school and harassed by the press for his role in The Phantom Menace to such a degree that he soon decided to retire from acting. In March of 2015, when Lloyd was in his mid-20s, the police were called to the Indianapolis home of his mother, Lisa Riley. She alleged that he'd arrived at her residence and verbally berated, then physically assaulted her. Riley declined to press charges, revealing that Lloyd suffered from paranoid schizophrenia and hadn't been taking his medication at the time. She would also later state that the former child actor had a symptom called anosognosia, meaning that he was unaware of his mental health condition. In June of that same year, Lloyd, who went by the surname Broadbent, was arrested in South Carolina. The sheriff's office had been alerted to a reckless driver. Lloyd sped away upon being approached by law enforcement, and a chase ensued on Interstate 95. During the pursuit, Lloyd reportedly drove at upwards of 100 miles. He crashed through a fence and went off-road, ultimately coming to a halt after crashing in some small trees. Lloyd was charged with reckless driving, driving without a license, and resisting arrest. He wasn't released on bail and was eventually transferred to a psychiatric facility. In 2020, his family announced that he'd moved closer to them and continued receiving treatment for his condition. Number 6. Haley Joel Osment. Haley Joel Osment began his acting career in the mid-1990s portraying Forrest Gump's son in the eponymous film that went on to win 6 Academy Awards. He rose to further prominence through the psychological thriller The Sixth Sense, which earned him an Academy Award nomination of his own, and by starring in Steven Spielberg's AI, Artificial Intelligence. Osment, who was still in his early teens, had become one of Hollywood's most recognizable faces. As his once blooming career slowed in its ascension, Osment reportedly began struggling with substance abuse. One of his most notable legal troubles was a car accident in the summer of 2006 when he was only 18 years old. He lost control of his 1995 Saturn while driving through Glendale, California, then struck a mailbox which caused his vehicle to flip over. He managed to exit the Saturn on his own after suffering a broken rib and a fractured shoulder blade. Osment faced several charges that stemmed from him having had a blood alcohol level nearly twice the legal limit and for being in possession of marijuana. He faced jail time and ultimately pleaded no contest to driving under the influence of alcohol and misdemeanor drug possession. He was sentenced to 5 years probation, fined, and ordered to undergo 60 hours in an alcohol rehabilitation and education program. In more recent years, another incident involving Osment took the form of a public meltdown at a Las Vegas airport in 2018. The child star, then aged 29, started shouting obscenities in the gate agent's face upon being informed that the flight was full. He was quoted as threatening, "I'll destroy you," and also shouting, "Do you know who I am?" According to witnesses at the scene, many hadn't, in fact, recognized Osment. The authorities were called, but it's unclear what charges, if any, the former child actor faced. Number 5. Shaun Weiss. Although he's made appearance on several successful TV series, Shaun Weiss is best known for his role as Greg Goldberg in the Mighty Ducks movies. The trilogy arguably represented the pinnacle of Weiss's acting career, but he would subsequently become the focus of media attention through a series of legal troubles, most noticeably since 2017. In July of that year, he was arrested for shoplifting close to $151 of electronics from a store. He pleaded no contest to petty theft charges and was sentenced to 150 days in the Los Angeles County Jail. Weiss served less than 2 weeks and was released due to overcrowding. 5 days after his newfound freedom, he was taken into custody for methamphetamine possession and ordered to spend 90 days in jail. In August of 2018, Weiss was arrested for public intoxication, with his mugshot showing the toll the addiction had taken on his body. He looked emaciated and ashen, nearly unrecognizable from the goalie he'd portrayed in Mighty Ducks. Weiss's most recent encounter with law enforcement occurred in 2020, after he'd broken into a man's house while under the influence of methamphetamine. The actor, then in his 40s, looked gaunt and disheveled, as he was still struggling with substance abuse. According to updates on his situation, the latter arrest prompted him to get help, and in early 2022, he celebrated 2 years of sobriety. Number 4. Devin Ray. Actor Devin Ray had started acting professionally at the age of 9 and worked on various movies before landing the role of Buzz McAllister, the older brother of Macaulay Culkin's character, Kevin, in the first 2 movies of the massively popular Home Alone series. He continued working steadily in the years that followed before he was arrested on domestic violence charges on December the 8th of 2021. Ray, aged 44, was featured as one of the attractions at a convention in Oklahoma City. He'd reportedly gotten angry at his girlfriend, whose identity wasn't immediately released, for not charging 2 female fans for his autograph. Ray had reportedly been drinking heavily, and when the couple returned to their room at the Hyatt Place, Oklahoma City, he reportedly attacked his girlfriend. He pushed her onto the bed, then placed one hand on her mouth and the other on her throat. He began choking her and allegedly said, "This is how you die." The woman bit his hand and broke free, at which point Ray punched her in the face repeatedly. The police were called and the victim was found to have sustained bruising and marks under both eyes, scrapes above her lip, and a chest bruise. Ray, who denied ever attacking her, was taken into custody on charges of battery by strangulation, a felony, as well as misdemeanor domestic assault and battery. Number 3. Amanda Bynes. Amanda Bynes began acting professionally at the age of 7, making stage appearances in several musicals before she was cast by Nickelodeon on its sketch comedy series All That from 1996 to 2000. She went on to star in a spin-off series called The Amanda Show, before mainly focusing on a rather short-lived feature movie career. While still predominantly recognized as a former child actor, Bynes began struggling with substance abuse and drawing media attention through controversies and legal troubles. In 2012, a few years after she had stopped appearing in movies and on TV, she was charged with driving under the influence in West Hollywood. In 2013, she was charged with reckless endangerment and marijuana possession after being found smoking in the lobby of her Manhattan apartment building. The former charge stemmed from her allegedly throwing a bong out the window of her 36th floor apartment, but the case was ultimately dismissed. Her family's concerns for her well-being increased in 2013 after Bynes was arrested in Ventura County, California, for starting a small fire in a stranger's driveway. She was hospitalized for 72 hours under a mental evaluation hold, and her mother was subsequently granted a conservatorship of her affairs. In 2014, Bynes accused her father of abuse on Twitter. The latter maintained his innocence, and the former child star subsequently stated that her father hadn't directly abused her, offering a peculiar reasoning by saying, "The microchip in my brain made me say those things, but he's the one that ordered them to microchip me." Not long afterwards, she announced that she'd been diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Bynes later apologized to her family for the tweets and in 2018 told the media that with the help of her parents, she was 4 years sober. Today's topic was requested by Mega Soundwave X. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Orlando Brown. In spite of his attempts at cultivating a career in the music industry, Orlando Brown remained best known for his work as a child actor in the 1990s and 2000s. He appeared on The Jamie Foxx Show, Family Matters, and The Proud Family, as well as on Disney Channel's That's So Raven. In February of 2016, Brown was arrested after he'd hit his then-girlfriend in the parking lot of a police station. Officers took him into custody and found methamphetamine on him, which consequently led to Brown being charged with drug possession with intent to sell, in addition to domestic battery, for attacking his girlfriend. The former child actor, then in his late 20s, failed to appear in court and a warrant was issued for his arrest. Police eventually took him into custody in January of 2018 after responding to reports of a domestic disturbance at a residence in Barstow, California. The row involved Brown, his girlfriend, and the woman's mother. He was taken into custody on additional charges of drug possession and domestic battery and, once again, missed his court date. On April the 13th, bounty hunters apprehended him in Las Vegas, where they found him hiding in a homeowner's closet. Number 1. Danny Bonaduce. Danny Bonaduce became famous in the 1970s as a child actor co-starring in the hit TV sitcom The Partridge Family. After the show, Bonaduce went on to have a moderately successful career in film, radio, and television, while also taking part in celebrity boxing events and professional wrestling bouts. Known for his choleric personality, Bonaduce had several run-ins with law enforcement in the early 1990s. He was arrested while trying to buy cocaine in Daytona Beach, Florida, on March the 9th of 1990. In a dark, ironic twist, it emerged that Bonaduce was there hosting an event for Drug Abuse Resistance Education, or DARE, a program aimed at educating children on the dangers of drugs. A little over a year later, in March of 1991, he was arrested for assaulting and robbing Darius Barney, a transvestite escort. The incident took place in Phoenix, Arizona, and Barney reportedly suffered cuts and a broken nose. Bonaduce pleaded guilty to reduced charges, and his punishment included paying his victims' medical bills. In October of 2007, at the Fox Reality Awards, there was an altercation between Bonaduce and Survivor contestant Johnny Fairplay. They were both on stage, and Fairplay had reportedly jumped on the former child star to hug him. Bonaduce, a black belt in the Korean martial art of Tang Soo Do, subsequently claimed that he didn't like Fairplay's hands being so close to his throat. He adjusted his balance and threw the Survivor contestant over his head. Because he was holding a microphone at the time, Fairplay was unable to brace and landed face first. He staggered off the stage and was later reported to have lost some teeth, in addition to suffering a broken toe. Fairplay pressed charges and a felony battery investigation was opened, but ultimately dropped by the LA District Attorney's Office, which concluded that Bonaduce had acted in self-defense. Thanks for watching. If you were given the option to relive just one of your childhood years, what age would you choose to be again and why? Let us know in the comments section below.